What's going on, everyone? Got a tip of the week for you, and this one is regarding when to go up in resistance and how to do that. So we've got to go back to the core of what resistance training is, or a resistance training program, and that is this concept of progressive overload, which simply means as we get stronger, we need to continue to challenge ourselves in order to force adaptation or muscle growth. In other words, if we keep doing what we've always done or always can do, then we're not really giving our body a reason to adapt and to change. So we have to continue to always challenge ourselves. So when is that point? When do we know when we need to go up in resistance? Well, it's actually really easy. It's when you reach a point where you're doing a certain amount of resistance for a certain amount of reps, and all of a sudden you can do it a whole lot easier. That's when you know it's time to challenge yourself. Now, a lot of people will track this in a workout log, and they'll say, okay, I did 25 pounds and I did it for 10 reps. And then 2 weeks later, they look at it and they reference that and say, okay, well, it's time for me maybe now to go up to a heavier weight. And that's not necessarily true, because there is no fixed amount of time. And this isn't a numbers game. It's not just about how much something weighs and how many reps you can do. It's about perceived exertion. You have to be able to kind of check yourself and say, hey, can I do more? Is this getting too easy? I'm trying to go for 10 reps, but I know that I could probably do 14 or 15. If you get to 10 and you feel like you could do 4 or 5 more, and your goal is 10 reps, that's the time when you want to go up in resistance. Now, on the flip side, this goes back to tracking it in a log. Here's why you can't just arbitrarily try to, up your weight as you go throughout a period of time. If we say, okay, well, my goal is to get bigger and stronger and I want to continue to progress, I'm going to go up in weight. Well, what I see happening is people going up in weight just because that's what they're told they need to do, but then it leads to sloppy form because the weight's too heavy for them. So they're trying to do 10 reps, but instead of doing 10 really good reps, they're using a weight that's too heavy. They get to 7, and so then they try to cheat and use momentum and do all kinds of things to get those 3 extra reps, and you don't want to do that. You want to use good, strict discipline form, and that goes back to time under tension, which is a whole separate video in itself. If you don't know anything about that, go to YouTube and search James Grage, time under tension, and some different videos will pop up on the subject. Or we can do a quick tip on that later on. But long story short, you have to let perceived exertion be your guide of when you go up in resistance. Now, as far as how to go up in resistance, there's a couple different ways to do it. You can do it within just a single band itself. You don't always have to go to a heavier band. There's ways to increase the resistance just with a single band. For example, I can shorten the length of the band. I'll anchor it under my feet. I can shorten the length of it. Let's say I'm doing curls. I can do it right here, where you see I've got about this much extra. I can shorten the length by grabbing further down, and now I've pre-stretched the band even more, and I've increased the resistance. So anytime you shorten the length of a resistance band, you are increasing the resistance. That's linear variable resistance. Now, the other way of doing it is with your feet. I could grab within the loop here a couple ways. I could actually step on it at different lengths, or I could put under both feet. Depending on the width of my stance, that's going to make it harder as well. So anytime you shorten the length of it, if we're doing anchored exercises, let's say that we attach this to a door anchor, I can step further away from my anchor point. That too is going to increase the resistance. So that's one way of doing it. The other way, of course, is just going up from one band to another, to a heavier band. But there's a third way you can do it, which is actually combining bands, the same way that you would with weight training. You would add multiple plates on there to get the resistance that you want. So we can do the same thing. We can add different bands together, and then we can even adjust it and fine-tune it even more by doing what we talked about, which is either lengthening the band to make it harder or shortening it to take a little resistance off. So you can have any kind of resistance level you want between all those different techniques. So that is the long and the short of when to go up in resistance and how to go up in resistance. So that is your quick tip of the week. I'll see you guys next time.